everyone, it's Stephanie here and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be playing with this new Crosshatch polka dot background stamp, and we're going to be embossing it onto a couple of panels, and then we're going to do some ink blending over top. I really like this stamp because it has like medium-sized circles. They're kind of the perfect size for a card front, and all of the circles have that crosshatch detail, which is just kind of fun and unexpected. So I have covered this stamp in Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink that's going to hold on to our embossing powder. And I just took my panel directly to the stamp and I'm pressing down firmly to transfer all of that ink to the front of our panel. The panel I'm stamping on measures 4 inches by 5 1/4, so it's going to fit nicely onto an A2 size card, and we'll still get a little bit of a border. Once I had that ink on there, I went ahead and grabbed my white embossing powder, and I'm just sprinkling it all over the panel to fully cover all of those stamped areas. And you can see when I tilt it in the light there that I ended up with some embossing powder in places that I didn't want it. So I'm just going to use my paintbrush here. This is just a dry brush. And I'm just going to very carefully brush that extra embossing powder off so that when we heat set it, we don't accidentally heat set that as well. So I'm just going to take this to my heat gun, and now I have a fully heat embossed panel, and you're going to see those crosshatch patterns a lot better when we start to add some ink. I have a scratch piece of paper there that I'm going to ink blend on top of just to protect my work surface, and I also have this circle stencil. This is a really great stencil if you want to do a bunch of different circles in a lot of different sizes and do ink blending, or you can trace them with a pen or a pencil. Just depends on what you're going for and the look you want to achieve. For my card design, I'm going to be using the circles on this stencil to highlight some of the crosshatch polka dots that we have in the background. You can't really see them right now because they're white on white, but as I start to add this ink to them, you're really going to see them start to shine through. So what I want to do is I want to just kind of do a pattern of polka dots, and I'm going to be doing them in rainbow colors. I haven't used rainbows in a little while. It's been a lot of Christmas around here, so I wanted to go back to a colorful design. But if rainbows aren't your thing, then you can just use one single color, or you can do an ombre effect and have it go lighter to darker from the top of the panel to the bottom. So you can see here I did the purple one first, and I'm using some post-it tape to kind of mask off the areas around the circle that I'm ink blending. I just want to make sure I'm not getting ink where I don't want it, and I absolutely would if I didn't protect the surface. So that's why I'm just adding that post-it tape as I go. And I'm reusing it throughout all of these card designs. I did have one spot where I did a little bit of ink transfer, and that was with yellow. But for the most part, I didn't have any problems reusing the tape. So just kind of keep an eye if you start to see that the ink is kind of moving into other colors. So I'm just quickly moving this around. I'm just kind of picking the circles that I want to highlight, and I'm picking different sizes of circles in the stencil. I want to kind of have those colors overlap. I love the look of seeing the colors overlap with each other, especially when it's just a tiny bit on the edges of the circle design. And I'm not showing it on camera, but I am wiping off my stencil in between each circle just to get that ink off of there. Because the stencil is a plastic material, the ink will definitely transfer if you don't clean it between each of the circles. So I'm just finishing this one off now. I decided I wanted to add one more circle at the bottom, and since I had already used all of the colors that I planned on using, I just picked the farthest color, which was the pink, and I added another circle there at the bottom. And now we kind of have this really cool design where we have these circles kind of floating on the card front. We have that crosshatch polka dot detail shining through the circles that we ink blended, and I just think it's a really fun, cool look on the card design. For this second panel, I'm going to be creating the same type of background. I've already stamped my background stamp onto the panel and heat embossed it with white embossing powder. I did stamp the panel in the other direction on the background to get a little bit of a different look, and I'm going to add a lot more circle detail to this one. I want this panel really full of color because we're going to die cut that huge hugs from the center of the panel, and I really want to be able to see where we're die cutting it since we're going to layer it on white, and having a bunch of color is really going to make those letters stand out. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did on the first card. I'm going to pick a circle, and I'm going to use the post-it tape to kind of mask off those circles around the edges. And then I'm going to come in with my ink blending tool and some ink and add color to that circle. For this one, I'm starting with the center. I wanted to start off and kind of work my way out toward the edges. And I also decided for this one that I wanted all of the circles to be the same size. So what I did is I just kind of kept going and adding color. I just kind of jumped ahead because it's the exact same process over and over. I just keep moving the stencil, changing the colors, and adding in the color inside each of those circles. So you can see here now I'm just going to finish up this panel. I have quite a few circles on this one, much more than I have on the first one. And you can kind of see them side by side here and see the difference that you get by adding just a few circles and having different sizes, and then having a bunch of circles and having them all the same size. So now that I have the panels finished, I need to create the sentiments that we're going to add onto them. So I'm going to use a piece of black cardstock and heat emboss with white embossing powder. And I'm going to use this new Smile Maker stamp set. This set has a large smile word as well as a bunch of coordinating sentiments that are a lot smaller that you can use with that stamp or on their own. So we're going to be using 2 on their own, and I'm going to stamp both of these onto my black cardstock with Versamark ink. I put them both onto the same acrylic block just to speed things up, and I'm going to add white embossing powder over top of my stamping. I'll then take these to my heat tool to heat set them, and I'll also die cut them with the Skinny Strips Die-namics. I love that all of the smaller sentiments fit on these little dies. They're one of my favorite ways to add sentiments to my card designs. So now I'm going to go ahead and just figure out where I want to place these. I knew with this one I wanted to have it go off the side of the card, so I did emboss it kind of over to the left-hand side of that banner so that we can trim off the edge on the right side. And for this one here, I was just trying to decide if I wanted to go portrait or landscape. I did decide to go landscape since I had a lot more room to position the letters and position the banner over top. So I just figured out which way I wanted the panel to go, and then I ran this through my die cutting machine. And you can see when we pop out these letters after I've die cut it that we have this really great sentiment right in the middle of the panel. We can leave it as is, which is what I'm going to do for my card design, or you could layer the letters back into the panel. A fun way to do this is to die cut the sentiment multiple times out of white cardstock and then layer all of the letters together to create some really cool dimension on your card. But I decided I wanted to leave everything flat. I want the white to show through. I kind of want the huge hugs to be there as a sentiment, but I want it to be in the background. I want the sentiment strip to be the focus on the card and all of the colorful circles. So once I have it all together, it ends up looking exactly how I envisioned. But if you want the sentiment to be more bold, then you can put a different color underneath of it, or you could actually even raise it up off of the card and create a shaker card underneath of those window openings. Like I mentioned earlier, both of my card bases are A2 in size, so they're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 as finished cards. And you can see on the huge hugs ones, I decided to put that sentiment banner right in the center between the 2 words. And for the first panel we created, I added that sentiment strip coming off of the right-hand side. I did decide to add some clear sequins to the first card. I thought the white space kind of looked a little bit better with some sequins added on top, and I filled each of the centers of those with Stardust stickles. And now we have 2 finished card designs that both feature that embossed detail as well as the ink blending over top. Both of them have a stamped sentiment banner, and we have the huge hugs die cut in the center of the landscape card. I hope today's video gave you some ideas on ways that you can combine your background stamps along with some embossing and stenciling to create some really fun and unique card designs. As always, I appreciate you being here for another video, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much for watching.